Welcome back to Sports Talk with McKinney, and we're going to talk a little about the National Football League, Week 1, and what a Week 1 it was. You know, we just talked about the Razorbacks, and in that game, there were some great games Sunday in the NFL, especially the later games on Sunday.
There were some terrible games too, Dave.
Oh, yeah, I think we might talk about some of those terrible games, but
the worst game.
We're going to talk let's talk some hits and misses, because there were some hits and there were some misses. And we'll kind of go around, and I'll go ahead and let's talk about my hit for the week. And my hit for the week was probably, I would have to say, probably to me would be Antonio Brown on Monday night. Now, I can't just say it because I'm just a Steelers fan, but Antonio Brown just continues to play at a level that's just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, on Monday night, Washington Redskins could do nothing to stop Antonio Brown, and to see how he's just becoming a complete game changer and, you know, being double teamed and just being absolutely unstoppable. To me, he was my hit for Week 1, Mike.
I'm gonna throw a couple out here, but the first thing I'm gonna go with is just a huge swing and a miss with Jeff Fisher and the Rams. I said it from the beginning. Anybody who would listen, you know, it didn't matter what city that the Rams were playing in, as long as Case Keenum was the quarterback, there's nothing good was going to happen. And that game the other night, the late Monday night game, was the worst football game I've ever sat through. And Joey's got something for us in a minute about that game, but just from the standpoint of, having to watch something and see just how terrible it is, and being a Rams fan and watching them get shut out by the hated San Francisco 49ers, it's just terrible. Jared Goff's got to get in there. But I would like to point out a couple games that were total hits. All right. We saw the Super Bowl that we should have seen last year in that 21-20 Denver victory over Carolina. What a game that was to start the season, the kickoff game. And then I think the best game of the week, and got to take your hat off to Oakland and their coaching staff for going into New Orleans and going for two and winning 35-34 at the end of the game in New Orleans. What a great game that was. So a couple really good games. Joey, thoughts?
I've got a hit for you. How about that 49ers game against the the former St. Louis Rams? Well, maybe not so much a hit, but there was something pretty funny in that game. If for those of you who may have stayed awake long enough for that game, as boring as it may have been, but those who stayed awake through it all, I believe, Mike, you were one of them. I think you said you kind of fell asleep, you read.
I started reading a book.
It was
so boring.
Okay, well, if you could do this, I don't know if this is allowed, but let's talk about Kevin Harlan. He's the radio announcer for the game that night, and if you could give an MVP or an award, it would have to go to him that night for the announcement that he made when the fan ran onto the field. That was the best part of that whole game. And it was comical, the way he called it. I believe they said he was drunk. Imagine that. Running down the field.
If I had to watch the Rams, I would be drunk too.
But
I wish I would have been.
The worst thing was they didn't film it. They took the camera off of it. There was a little bit of the guy running down the field, and then they took it off. But it was hilarious watching or listening to him do the play-by-play of the guy running down the field. That was probably the best part. So that was a hit for the game. All the rest was, like I said, kind of a dud. But that was awesome, that part.
Well, speaking about duds, and you kind of mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk about a dud. Jeff Fisher, as head coach of the St. Louis and now the Los Angeles Rams, and the Los Angeles Rams coming in. This is your chance to make a debut. You're coming in. You're trying to win over fans who historically are pretty fickle fans out in L.A. You're wanting to come out and impress them and to throw a complete dud. And Jeff Fisher Very respected coach when he was with the Titans. Had some really big years, of course, came within a yard of a Super Bowl win against the St. Louis Rams.
Right.
Came up a little bit short. But, I mean, looking at his numbers since 2009, 8-8 is his best record. 8-8, 6-10. Then he goes to the Rams. 7-8, 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, and 0-1. Jeff Fisher coming out and throwing a complete dud while his number one pick sits on the sidelines. Is it time for Jeff Fisher to go? And to me, I think it's time. You tell me another coach in the NFL who's had such a futile record in the last 6 years and still has his job.
Well, I mean, and it's not just that Jared Goff was on the sidelines. He was in street clothes. He wasn't even on the roster for that game. He wasn't even activated for that game. And in the past decade, all the number one picks, every number one quarterback has come in and started until now. And I just don't get it. And I'm sure Ram fans, I know in Los Angeles, apparently they're thrilled to have the Rams. I think they got a taste of what, it's like to be a Rams fan again. The number one jersey sale, Rams, right? But it's not going to last long when you're throwing up goose eggs against, not a very good San Francisco team. And, historically, they play well against Seattle, who they're playing this week, but, how can you have any confidence going into that game? And when you have a number one pick and he's not even active for the game, and you throw Case Keenum out there, seriously? He was on a practice squad 2 years ago. And, you have got to bring something more to that situation when you are trying to, invigorate a city and a team. It was just sad, and I didn't know if I was going to watch them as a fan. I ended up doing it, and I'm sorry that I did.
Well, and Jeff Fisher, he's been head coach for 5 years.
Done
He's
nothing.
27, 37-1 in 5 years. Is it time for Jeff Fisher to move along?
I think if he gets if you don't go to the playoffs this year, something's going to have to happen. I don't know that you fire him during a game like, what Arkansas State did, several years ago, where they fired their coach in the fourth quarter. That's a little unprofessional, but I was kind of wishing that they would at the time. They'll come back, he'll win a game or two, and they'll be 4-5 or 2-6, then rattle off 2 or 3 wins. But not a lot of confidence in the Rams. But hey, we're talking a lot about them. But I'd like to take a minute to look at Oakland, because I think they're a team. And we talked about Brian Coots in the last segment. That's Coots' team, and I think they've got a chance to do something this year. They look good at quarterback. They look good on defense. They've got a running game. They've been down for many years. We might see something out of them in a weak AFC West.
Well, I think we got a lot to talk about the NFL. I know Joey's got some more stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stories for us to talk about the NFL. So how about we come back and we'll make this a 2-part segment. We're going to come back with Joey Football to talk about his misses for the week. And, we got Dak Prescott to talk about in Dallas and a lot of things going on in the National Football League. But we'll be right back to talk a little more NFL.